Alrighty, everyone, welcome back. It is Dreaded D, the infamous pirate captain protecting T-Fuel Island. Today we're going to be discussing how the Theta blockchain can utilize the Meter Passport to integrate itself and connect to other blockchains. We're going to be diving into this thing. Just remember, this is not financial advice. Please do your own research. So before we get too deep into Meter and its functions, let's just get a baseline of how this all came to be. There's a Theta Medium post that came out saying that Meter is going to be enabling support for the Theta network in their bridge protocol. And, a bridge is going to be a super significant thing as we move towards this multi-blockchain future where multiple blockchains can interact with one another in a seamless way. That's going to be super important. And bridges is the name of the game, even today. If you went on Crypto Banter, you heard bridges. That is the main focal point for a lot of investments right now in the next couple weeks, months as we head into this Q4 season. And the fact that Meter is, they have support for Ethereum, Avalanche, BSC, and, also Moonriver, which is huge on Kusama Polkadot. So these things all working together synergistically is going to create an ideal situation, at least in the sense for Theta, is going to allow liquidity to hopefully get ported over to Theta and vice versa. Theta over to Ethereum and other chains as well too. And that blending is going to create and hopefully pull some liquidity to our chain and enable new use cases for us as well. So what is Meter at its core? Before we dive into Passport and the bridge and everything, let's just get an understanding of what kind of tokenomics we're dealing with in this system, as this is new to me as well as new to others. This is a bridge that is not very known, unlike others, like even Binance has their own bridge. There's stuff on MIM that you can do for bridging assets across from Phantom to other chains. So let's get into it. So it runs a 2-token system, just like Theta, similar, different but similar. MTRG is your governance token. So that's for your governance for record keeping. Proof of stake token. And you can vote on major changes in monetary policy in the network, as well as you're going to be earning rewards from the auctions, and we'll discuss that with their metastable token, which is, to me, the more interesting of the two. So Meter, MTR, is a metastable currency created by proof-of-work miners, and the price of Meter is tied or closely tied to 10 kilowatt hours of electricity, which is super interesting because this is what Bitcoin was trying to solve for initially. When I would explain Bitcoin in the early days to people that didn't understand, or they said, hey, that wastes electricity, this is, the way I would explain it to them was, well, here's the thing. With Bitcoin, you have now put a price tag on cheap, ubiquitous energy. And by doing so, you have now incentivized a whole young generation of people to create cheap energy for the sake of mining Bitcoin to gain rewards. There's now a carrot on a stick that's dangling out in front of somebody. Now, this narrative has changed over and over again, and I'm still hopeful and hoping that blockchain technology and mining in general will create and develop a new form of sustainable, renewable energy for us to live off of. Still hopeful, waiting, So with each meter being created with 10 kilowatt hours of electricity using a SHA-256 proof of work, which is the same as Bitcoin protocol. The main difference, though, is that the block reward for the Meter token is elastic instead of fixed. And that's the main difference. So it creates this synergistic effect as people are mining for MTR, and as they move away, as there's other proof of work chains that are maybe more profitable, like BTC. And this elasticity helps create demand and just this kind of ebb and flow that goes on, kind of like Lunaterra, and as supply increases, there's arbitrage opportunities. There's this constant balancing effect that's happening and going on. Now, what's going to be interesting to see, though, is a lot of this, and same with Luna and Terra, requires growth. It requires people utilizing and developing on this Meter protocol. for this to work, as well as help prevent flash crashes and issues with the stability of the token and maintaining its peg. It's nice to see that this the meter token isn't just a it's pegged via chain link oracles and now has the risk of those oracles or acting in a nefarious way or causing issues. So we'll have to wait and see. All these tokens, especially the stuff I mentioned with Lunaterra, UST, MIM, all these tokens, they have protection to a certain degree, but that protection is dependent upon actions that we haven't seen yet, and we're kind of in that testing phase. So allocating resources and money to UST or any of these things are still risky ventures. They're in my opinion better places to take profit into because you are protected in a certain way from the custodial holders, but you aren't protected in the way of issues within the code base or issues where someone takes advantage of the way the current infrastructure is set up and whether they can change that through a challenging time in a quick enough manner to not affect price or damage price in a damning way. And when I say the block reward in Bitcoin is static, I'm not accounting for halvings or any of those things. I'm just saying that everyone's fighting and bidding for that block reward, and in this case in Meter it's different. They've changed it so that the block reward is elastic to the response by the miners and what is needed to maintain and help the price peg. So with that comes its own set of challenges, but at the same time, this is exactly why I even got into crypto, was I saw this avenue where figuring out a way to create incentives for cheap, ubiquitous energy. That's really what it was all about for me in the early days, was figuring out a way to incentivize people to enable a world in which things are better, things are more efficient, and creating the incentive structure that is necessary to make that world possible. It's going to take a lot of time to do that, and we're not even 1/10 of the way there. But it is a hopeful dream of mine, and it's what this technology enables to provide the resources and the monetary incentives that are necessary to make this possible. So I guess the best way to think about the Meter ecosystem, and this was said by the developers and teams as I was listening to some discussions they were having throughout the day, and the best way I've heard this to describe the two-token economics is that Meter, the metastable stable coin, quotation marks there, is like the miner itself. You are a mining company. You're earning reward. You're earning the silver, the gold, and then the MTRG, the governance token, is you are the financial institution. You're the one providing the ability to trade in those metals for other currency, other options. You are creating the monetary policy. So you are the bank to that mine. And you have this synergistic effect where both of you are working together, as well as creating auctions, which we'll get into next, which is a whole other piece of this whole entire protocol. This next section we're going to be talking about is the on-chain auctions and how those function. Now, I have not participated in an on-chain auction through the Meter protocol. I have experience holding the tokens, but I don't have experience in this governance aspect of things. And the on-chain auctions are quite complex, in all honesty, so without me experiencing it, just remember to take this section with a grain of salt. So the way that it's been described to me, and the way that I understand it at least, it's a Dutch auction. In Dutch auction, you start with a high, a price, and then you drop the price at a 24-hour epoch until you catch a bid, basically. And then all the participants that are bidding or participating in the auction that hold Meter token, MTR, the metastable stablecoin, basically, then agree upon that price and then acquire MTRG, the governance token. Now, the one part that I don't fully understand is who is providing the MTRG. Is this being provided by the governance proposal? And then what actually happens with the MTR once these things are placed through the auction? On this diagram here, it looks like they're burned, but then if you go through what the Meter reserve is, and they say that at launch 100% of the proceeds collected from the on-chain auctions in MTR gradually goes to validators as block rewards in the next 24 epoch. However, a portion of the proceeds can be put into a system reserve. The MTR that are put into the reserve are temporarily removed from circulation. This reserve allocation ratio is a parameter that can be adjusted via the meter governance process. So this chain in general is a work in process, and it seems like it's, if this is how they're going about things, is owned by the token holders. It's a good experiment because these MTRG holders almost act like a commercial bank or a central bank in this sense to these MTR that are produced. So it's an interesting thing going forward, and to see a good example of a currency that operates in a permissionless fashion and see if it's successful or not. Very exciting. Now, my trials with Meter Passport, it seems pretty straightforward. It's got the same interface similar to Uniswap, connects through MetaMask, which is super, super nice because that's really where everyone's utilizing DeFi right now, is via MetaMask account. And it's great that Theta is now interacting within MetaMask. I think that's going to be a great thing going forward, especially because all the RPCs are through that one channel. And even through my testing with Meter Passport here with the bridge, between different networks you have different fees, but the bridge fee, after doing a couple transfers and testing out, it seemed pretty reasonable. For the most part, the bridge fee was around like $20 or so to bridge an asset from one point over here. So if you're doing larger amounts, it's not too bad. Obviously, this doesn't take into account, though, let's say the Ethereum network fee. If the fees are high and the GUI needed is, over $100 or $50 or 40, it's going to be higher. But it's still, in retrospect to, doing things on Uniswap, it's still pretty reasonable to transfer assets over from one chain to another. So, and they have a good slew here. You got Moon River, Kusama, Polkadot Project, Avalanche, BSC, and it's great to see that Theta's on the testnet right now, and hopefully we'll see Theta mainnet being onboarded shortly here, and that's going to be great to see what kinds of things that we as a community and people from the Ethereum community come up with, Avalanche community, BSC. It opens up all those gateways. So now we have access to all of them, and they can utilize the products and services that the Theta team is providing. Just from a tokenomics standpoint for the Meter Governance token, it looks like they have some incentives for people to hold the Meter Governance token, which include that every address gets 30% reimbursement on the first 3 bridge transfers. So it's a good, testing environment to try things out. But depending upon your stake or your, how much you have in MTRG, you will get reimbursed on your bridge fees, which would be great for, let's say, devs who are working with the Theta team or people that are in the hackathon. If they hold a certain amount of MTRG stake, they can do a lot of transfers very cheaply, even when they're dealing with Ethereum per se, and having those costs get reimbursed in a way. So that's a pretty cool perk to have with the MTRG staking token. So we've discussed a little bit about the Meter protocol and what it actually is, what it does, the tokenomics of it. Now let's go back and what does this actually mean for Theta in relation to this. So let's go through some stuff from the Medium article, which they listed some benefits of having the ability to bridge from one chain to another. So, number 1, crypto assets from key blockchains can now seamlessly access the large Theta user base through DeFi protocols, bringing new capital into the Theta ecosystem. Yeah, now you can port over projects seamlessly. You can bridge tokens that were not there. You can put wrap versions over into the Theta ecosystem, brings liquidity, as well as the main thing, burns T-Fuel. As these transactions and things start interacting with indexes, T-Drop, all these new things that could be happening, you're going to burn more T-Fuel and create the synergies necessary for a balanced ecosystem. Number 2, ThetaSwap DEX will gain access to stablecoins, enabling deeper liquidity and ease of trading on ThetaSwap DEX. We've talked about stablecoins endlessly, and in the last video we talked about how Theta and Theta Video API could benefit from a stablecoin. Just to reiterate that, a stablecoin that can be put in place on top of, let's say, Theta Video API, and then instantly swap to the T-Fuel necessary to utilize the actual protocol is huge, because it locks in a business at a dollar-based cost so they can manage their finances better. And at the same time, it only puts them at risk for T fuel for a couple of seconds rather than having to allocate a certain chunk to their balance sheet. They can utilize what they need and when they need to. So having this liquidity on chain is very, very essential to the growth, in my opinion, of the Theta Video API and other applications that the team builds. Number 3, lending protocols like Aave and Compound can allow Theta users to access funds without reducing their exposure to T-Fuel or TNT20 tokens. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits that they could provide on chain and gaining access. And then we also have things like persistence and liquid staking. And, one thing to recognize as well, too, is that without liquid staking, or before liquid staking, there was concern with proof of stake chains. Proof of stake chains, you have one use case and you have tokenomics that are involved. But when you add DeFi and these other compounding protocols or liquidity pool things on top of things, you can detract some of that supply from the actual tokenomic use case of the token. So let's say Theta, there's a liquidity pair that's paying 40%, right? What if a massive amount of Theta moves over from Guardian nodes and into these liquidity pools? Now, that's why liquid staking like XPRT with persistence, that's why it's such a big deal, and creating these tokens where you actually can keep staking the token and then create if you want to venture out and utilize that for DeFi purposes, you can, without having to unlock or move from the actual governance purpose of the token. Because it is true, if there wasn't liquid staking, or if liquid staking does not come about or does not come to be, you can cannibalize a POS network when you can move tokens out from one utilitarian use case to another. Now, we have a two-step security system in Theta. You have the validators and you have the guardians. So you have two lines of defense, which is super, super nice. But if a lot of guardians all say, hey, well, I'm only earning a small percentage here, rather than putting on a liquidity pool in the wrapped version of Theta on Ethereum and Uniswap, that's where the fear comes in, that you could almost cannibalize the network because the yield is better and people are functionally looking for yield or chasing yield in a way. So, and that's why liquid tokens are so important, XPRT, all these things, because they provide the ability to keep the funds locked up there while creating derivatives or formats that can then provide value to the user. All right, number 4, Ethereum developers focus on entertainment and media service offerings can now more easily develop on Theta and start building with full access to interoperability across networks. Yeah, this is huge. The bridge is what's going to gap those tokens over here and vice versa. Right now, we don't have a lot of stuff going on the Theta network from other protocols. But with a bridge, now you can take wrap versions and put them over onto this chain and hopefully get us liquidity on the Theta DEX. That's really key, and we need that liquidity. That liquidity is going to enable a lot of stuff. And then having our own liquidity pools, it's going to be a big thing to see. Alright everyone, I hope this gave you a baseline into what Meter is doing as a protocol, as well as what Passport means for Theta, and them trying to be basically the chain link of bridges, basically. Infrastructure that's utilized underneath everything without you potentially even knowing that you're utilizing it. That's really where a lot of the value comes into play, and I think that's what Meter's goal is that being an infrastructure play that just provides value cross-chain to everyone without forcing somebody to utilize one thing or another thing. And that's essential and that's key. And we're going to see how that all plays out. We got IBC, we got Polkadot, we got, all these things with parachains, and, everyone's trying to bridge, and bridges are going to be the biggest thing going into the future, because who can connect all the pieces together is going to make lots and lots of money. Not financial advice. One last thing to note is that both Pantera Capital and DHVC is invested in Theta as well as Meter, and Pantera is very, very, very prominent. So just some VCs to know about that are involved with Theta and Meter there. So, all right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions, what you didn't like, what you did like. And like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And I'll see you on T Fuel Island. All right, everyone. Take care.